pleasant place, made rich by the sunshine and lush by the rains. Say a gem light and fair between mountains and seas. Your children salute you, dear land of the
free land of Guyana. Our heroes of yore, both bondsmen and free, laid their bones on your shore. This soil so they hallowed, and from them are we all sons of one mother, Guyana, the great land of Guyana, diverse though our strains, we're born of their sacrifice, heirs of their pains, and ours is the glory their eyes did not see. One land of 6 peoples, united and free land.
Good evening, and welcome to another edition of Breaking Down the Issues. Of course, as usual, I'm your host, Shurwayne Holder, Member of Parliament and Chairman of the People's National Congress Reform. I must first apologize for the late start. We had some technical issues, some brief technical issues, which have since been resolved, and so uh, we're now on live with the program. I'll just take a few seconds, give you a few seconds to share the live. As usual, I ask that you share the live, share it on your various platforms, in your various groups. As a reminder of what we do on this program, we break down the issues, that hence the name. We try to uh, bring it down, bring those issues, those trending issues down to a level that the ordinary Guyanese, the ordinary people can understand. No flowery language, well, limited flowery language, or even if the flowery language is used, we still break it down for you, the people. I've been getting some good reviews uh, about this program. I think that is the main advantage of it, is the way how we break those issues down so that people can understand. A lot of times, uh, people listen to officials, and they're not certain what is it, whether partially or wholly, what is it that is actually being discussed, or they might have an idea, but a lot of these issues they mightn't get. So this program is very specific in trying to move past that, in trying to bring the issues in a way, or discuss it in a way which anybody could understand. And so, good night to you. I see Yolandaya Thomas, Marcia Jackman, and others. Please share the live. Share the live to your various platforms. Share to your friends, everybody in your phone book, everybody in your email address. Just share it. We're on again tonight. We had some good episodes discussing trending issues. Last week we had a lot going on in terms of the Venezuela Guyana controversy, or I should put it this way, the baseless and spurious claim, according to one of my dear friends. Um, Baseless and spurious it is Venezuela's claim to Guyana's territory, and that we must always remind ourselves of. There is no truth, there is no fact to that claim, and so we must put it that way from the onset. So we expect to be discussing again um, some issues surrounding that, or some developments rather, surrounding the Venezuela Guyana controversy. But tonight we want to move into discussing another trending issue, which is uh, which forms part of a bigger issue, and that is the increase for public servants. And when I say it forms part of a bigger issue, it's directly related to issues in terms of the cost of living here in Guyana, and our living conditions is directly related to that, and so we'd want to discuss that because that seems to be the next topic that people are talking about. You know, it's Christmas time. It's a time that calls for a lot of spending, whether you like it or not. The kids have an expectation, family members. You yourself have your own expectation. At your jobs, you expect to get a little bonus. You expect to get something a little extra to buy those curtains, to put cake and a little mobby or whatever is it you like at Christmas time, whatever it is that your children like at Christmas time. So it is a time when we all expect to have a little more, and to have a little more for our family or friends, and to even share a little more in terms of the community, or wherever you express those cheers, or whoever you express those cheers with. And so it is a very relevant topic. It is something that is being discussed in the streets. In every supermarket I go I was at a border market, um, and I heard discussions about the price of fruits and vegetables. I was in the supermarket just this afternoon, and again hearing discussions. On last Monday, I was no, it wasn't last Monday. Last week, I was in the charity area at the boat wharf, and again, these kinds of discussions are formulating all across the country, in every region, and so I think it is something that we definitely want to discuss. We had a late start, and so I want to get straight into the topic, guys. Just share the live. Just a reminder to share the live, share it in your various groups, etc., so that we can have maximum participation. I see a number of persons on, and so I think we could move straight into the discussions, the proper discussions. And who's better to discuss this issue than my colleague and good friend and advisor, economic advisor to the leader of the opposition, Mr. Elson Lowe. Um, so I want to bring him on immediately and welcome him tonight to this program, to this discussion. He's no stranger to these types of programs. And so I want to welcome Mr. Elson Lowe on this program tonight. Operator, if you can have Mr. Lowe come in. Elson, my friend, good night to you.
Good night, good night. It's always good to be on. Always excited to have a chat with you.
Yes, same at my end. I thought about having a full discussion on this topic, and I know we can't it's a huge topic. It encompasses so many different angles. It overlaps so many issues, and
Yeah.
we're talking about this increase in the for the public servants. And so I know that we will not be able to cover everything in one episode, but I want to get straight to it because we have
Yeah.
limited time. So I want to get straight to it. 6.5% increase in salaries for our public servants. That was announced about, well, a few days ago. I think it's about a week ago. I'm not sure if it's reached a week. It was announced by Ashley Singh, the minister with responsibilities for finance, and then supported by his government. And we've seen a number of statements being made in the public sphere, on social media, in the print media as well. Elson, I want us to discuss what 6.5% increase in 2023 means for the ordinary people, in the context of inflation, in the context of the current cost of living, in the context of our new found wealth, our oil economy. Um,
Yeah.
that is what I
Absolutely.
want to discuss at this point in time.
Absolutely. Well, again, good night, and we gotta give viewers a sense of where this issue was boiling from. Viewers, you may recall that the president made some announcements about salary adjustments for teachers, and said, "I will soon make announcements around public servant salary increases." And everyone was waiting for weeks and weeks for this soon to be coming announcement. In the meanwhile, you heard the Guyana Teachers Union indicate that only a small number of teachers were covered. So they expressed some frustration. So, from that background of a little bit of a great deal of frustration from teachers who had not been receiving salary adjustments for many years, we now saw this announcement. And I think many people were holding their breath, hoping that, now would be the year. They're holding back because they're going to bring something big. Now would be the year. And they were sorely disappointed that you've heard endless frustration on social media. I think you've alluded to some of that. And you've seen people in the papers and whatnot expressing how awful it is that this is the most that we can see in Guyana. Now, folks, one of the things we want to point out, because there's many different angles on this. The first thing we want to point out concerns the cost of living and inflation. Now, with a 6.5% increase, that any increase that is actually an increase has to be higher than the rate of inflation. Now, when I say that, I mean that the additional money you're getting has to be more than the additional cost of goods over the course of the year that you are buying. Otherwise, it's not an increase, it is the same or less. Now, the inflation rate, according to the United States State Department in Guyana, is 6.6% this year. So that means that the increase, the 6.5% increase, is less than the rate of inflation. So it is no increase. In fact, it is a slight reduction in public servants' real income, in their real buying spending power. So instead of these folks offering what many people were hoping for, that is to say, a substantial increase, what they got was really no increase at all. Goodness, that is what we're looking at. It is that bad that it is no increase at all. That is the first point. The second point is when it comes to inflation, and I saw a letter in the paper cite a World Bank number that it was 14% food inflation. And food inflation has been high for quite some time due to all sorts of reasons, international and domestic. But people on the lower end of the income scale spend a greater share of their income on food. And this increase, this 6.5 increase, was not an increase where people at the lower end get a bit more, people at the higher end of the income spectrum get a little less. It is a flat increase where everybody gets 6.5%. So those people at the lower end of the income scale who are most hurt by inflation, who are most suffering from the high prices, from the prices in the market, these folks in their Range Rovers and whatnot, and the fancy Prados, they're not going through border market, walking border market to try and get a deal, or walking through any of the other markets to try and get some sort of a deal. They don't have to worry about that. But the average person, the average public servant who is on the lower end of the income scale, they do have to worry about that. And they received the same increase as those at the top. So they are the ones who are worse off the prices are highest for the goods that they are purchasing, they are also receiving the smallest in terms of the dollar value increases. And so if you have a minister or somebody senior making 900,000 a month, they're getting like $700,000 for Christmas. And if you have somebody who is a minimum wage, public servant minimum wage, they're only getting around $65,000 for this Christmas. Goodness me, the people at the top are getting 10 times as much as the people at the bottom. And it's the people at the bottom who are suffering the most because they spend a lot of their money on food, and food inflation has been very, very high. This is the height of a really unjust policy, an uncaring policy. You know, Shurwayne, they didn't even take the time to sit down and say, all right, let's work out how we can give those at the bottom a higher percentage. Those at the top may not need quite as much during this cost of living crisis. They didn't even take the time to do that. One broad thing, 6.5%. And so if you're at the bottom, you're getting 65%. And if you're at the top, you're getting 700,000. Can you imagine that?
Elson, I'm happy that you mentioned so many things. So many things. I think you've outlined core policy position of the PPP, and uh, with respect to, well, I put it this way: you've highlighted a core policy there. Where I'm reading into a policy position of the PPP,
Yeah.
given what they have done historically, um, now and before the term before, and I'm seeing that that policy contrasts with the coalition. Um, in the past, the coalition would have given increases, given larger increases, but that is not the point I want to focus at this specific minute here. The coalition would have given more to those who had less,
Yep.
sort of an equity policy. The
Yep.
people who made uh, probably under $100,000 or $50,000, who were at the lower bracket, the low income people, they had the greatest increase in wages and salaries, while the persons who made those big buys at the top, who made 500,000, $1 million, and so they only got, I can recall, only like a 1% for the persons who had $1 million. So there's a great contrast between the way how the
Yeah.
PPP operates and in terms of their policy position, when you compare it with the coalition government.
Absolutely. We took the time to identify how we can structure these increases to try and benefit those who need additional funds the most. We made a special effort to do that. You know, the PvP is not interested in the small man. They're not interested in the average public servant. So those at the top, some of whom we say talk about friends, family, favorites, elite, PvP elite. The PvP elite is really, your ministers and whatnot. Those who would have benefited the most from these increases, and that is truly tragic and truly heartless. But that is what we're looking at. Even
Now,
when there
yeah,
is an increase, it is not really an increase because it is below the increase in prices. And then, those at the bottom getting a mere $65,000 for this Christmas, and those at the top getting $700,000, for Christmas. That's crazy.
yeah. So really and truly, all you got is a little retro to try and something a little bit of retro that you will try to see how to spend it at Christmas time. Essentially, that is all that public servants would have gotten. I'm really trying to understand why is it that public servants are treated this way. I was looking at the newspaper, and even before I go there, since the announcement of this 6.5 increase, a number of doctors and other public servants, and I mean doctors, right? I'm not even talking about the nurses who are
Yeah.
receiving a low salary, but doctors, nurses, all our public servants work really, really hard, especially those doctors and nurses working shift, working overtime. I know of some doctors when they turn on, they hardly have a turn off time. Working day and night, those that are working at in the emergency rooms, etc. And I saw an article which seemed remarkable to me, which I thought, that our doctors need to be praised and our public servants need to be praised in this country. I saw 30, about a 30 pound, what do you call it? Something like an abscess tumor, 30 pound, 34 pound tumor being removed successfully from an escribian. And my comment on that was that, look, this great job, this great to see, great to hear about. This is why we should continue to support them. That is why we should look at their cries, look at their conditions, and try to give them something more as an encouragement, for the good job, the good work that we see that they are doing within the health sector, even as they have limited resources being provided by the government and limited finances, or a low level of pay, still what they're receiving. Why is it that in an oil economy, Guyana now rated as the fastest growing economy in the entire world. The fastest our oil industry has emerged as the fastest oil developmental scheme, the fastest in the world. Persons are reporting, different organizations, different media are reporting that Guyana has, if not the fastest, one of the fastest emerging oil and gas industry. And coming with it is tons of resources, lots of cash, 620,000 barrels of oil today, what we are producing. Outside of that, our tourism, I don't know the exact figure, but I would estimate that it would have grown close to 10 times over in these last few years in terms of the sheer
The
influx
arrivals, the
of
arrivals have
arrivals, yes,
increased, but
into
that is
the
in
country.
connection with the oil industry, not so much tourism, because oil workers will be in and out
Well, well,
all
well,
of the
correct,
time.
correct, correct, correct. But in terms of the influx, I mean, we are, or we should be benefiting from it, and so many other
No,
non-oil.
absolutely. You're absolutely right. And the thing that is, I think, why so many people were surprised by how low the increase is that this is not the first year that Guyana is the fastest growing country in the world. I believe this is the second time, and if we're not the fastest, we're the second fastest. So it's been several years of tremendous, swift growth based on the oil industry, sharp increases in oil production. We're producing now twice as much, more than twice as much as Trinidad during the peak times, during the boom, and still no budging at all. Now you raise a good question there, Shurwayne. You ask why it is that the PAP is not giving public servants, or doesn't see the need to give them substantial raises. Now there are I think two components to this. The first is that the PPP does not see good governance as something important, and so does not see it important to invest in public servants to help Guyana to govern more efficiently. We have spoken before about the IMF indicating that we need to reform urgently, even as late as 2022. They mentioned that. And they mentioned that for every dollar spent, we lose 41 cents due to corruption, incompetence, etc., etc. Or that is the general idea. Now, if you have public servants who are properly compensated and tasked with targeting these inefficiencies, then you will save the nation money while at the same time being able to offer public servants a good wage. But if, of course, you're interested in corruption and you don't care about incompetence, then you wouldn't see public servants as worth investing in. That's point number one. Point number two, though, is one that is very pernicious, very alarming. And I don't know if you may have picked this up as well, Sherwin. The way that they frame their reluctance to produce increases is they say that it is not sustainable, it's not affordable. And they try to make these kinds of arguments, which exclude the oil industry and exclude oil revenues. And it seems to me they're trying to say that public servants are not entitled to the benefits when it comes to their salaries, to the benefits from the oil industry. Now, I don't know whose idea that was, but that's the most unjust thing I've heard in a long time. You mean to tell me that the same public servants processing all of these applications for oil blocks, all of these oil block auctions, all of the regulatory things, the environmental things that you have to deal with an oil industry, those same public servants are not entitled to the benefits that come from oil revenue? You mean to tell me that the policemen who are keeping people safe, the same people driving in the road who work in the oil industry, the policemen keeping them safe, are not entitled to benefit from oil revenues? You mean to tell me that the soldiers, who are even now in this time of difficulty and tension, helping to keep us safe and keep our oil industry safe, are not entitled, when it comes to their salaries, to the benefits from the oil industry? The healthcare workers who are helping people to go to work every day and work in that oil are not. Now, this is to me utter rubbish. And that is the argument that's being made. Now, that's the first part of that, that it is an argument which is on the face of it totally unfair. But also, man, they seem to think that you can only pay for public servants from the non-oil economy without understanding that as your economy is growing, you could put a certain amount of oil revenues toward public servant compensation. But you have a sovereign wealth fund that is there in case of a downturn. And you will eventually be getting, and we're already getting, interest from that sovereign wealth fund. You were getting revenue from just the sovereign wealth fund, the interest payments, because there's a lot of money there and it's earning interest. And so when they say it is not sustainable, that sounds like they just don't understand finance. They just don't understand budgeting. They don't understand the sovereign wealth fund, the national resources fund. And as a result, their management of public servant salary increases and the public service is totally wrong-headed. And it really is shocking.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and when you spoke of them saying that it's not sustainable. I'm wondering how is it that we were able to do it
Yep,
without a
yep,
drop of oil money.
exactly.
If the operator can pull up what we did in 2015, our very first year, and if we put it let people understand the context of that year when we got into government. I believe the oil to rice deal, rice was in a big problem during that time. The oil to rice deal was just squashed. We were in a bad position. Gaisuku wasn't making money. Some of the big earners were not making a cent, but we were able to, Elson, give 26.4% increase to the lowest level, um, those public servants who are just earning 39,540 dollars. We moved their salaries to $50,000. This is 2015 we're talking about.
Yep,
Those above that who are making 42,000 as well, we move those to 50. That's a 17% um, increase. Persons who made $50,000, we gave them 15%. Persons who had $100,000, we gave 10%. 200,000 got 7.5%, and $500,000 got 6%. Only that bracket got 6% because we were able to give in double digits, and huge double digits, um, increases to those lower level persons. So how is it that we can come back in 2023 and to say that this thing is not sustainable when we have so much more income, when the economy would have grown so much, our GDP, everything moving so much more, highest movement in the world, worldwide. People are looking from the outside and saying that they're seeing on the surface that we are growing to tremendous heights. Our public servants and those ordinary people in society don't seem to be benefited. And you know the hypocrisy in this, while in opposition, Barajak, you even as we did this, and they saw us giving 26%, as much as 26% increase. Barajak, you no less than the leader of the opposition at that time, called urge urge unions, urge the people of this country, urge the workers, the public servants, trying to project himself as being a champion for public servants, called for a 50% increase. Bharat Jagdeo at that time called for 50. I think operator, you should have the evidence there. When he made that call. Look, yes, it's on the screen. He made a request. He told them request a 50% increase. That is what he said to one of the larger um, unions, if not the largest, the GPSU, Guyana Public Service Union. That is what I what do you make of it, Jagdio? And today, let's put it. Let us give it some more context. Just at his last press conference, he moved to defend the 6.5 increase, saying that all the other measures that government no, in this case, he said, I want to get it correctly. He said that they can't only cater for public servants, they got to cater for the other sections. Weren't we catering for all the sections, the entire country at that time?
No, you are quite right to point it out. And one thing that we want to highlight to viewers is this. One of the reasons that the coalition has to provide such large public servants and other and teachers and so on, such large increases for public servants, is because the PPP deliberately underpays them for prolonged periods of time. 2%, 3%, 5%, 4%. That kind of increase is what they were given for the longest while when in government. So we had to step in there and give people reasonable wages. And again, what you're seeing is the same trick where they're giving these minimal raises. And when we are in office in 2025, 2026, we will have to give again significant raises to help people to catch back up. If they are given raises that are not even higher than inflation or barely at the level of inflation, we will not allow such injustices to stand, and we will give public servants substantial raises. So they're deliberately doing it, deliberately holding back public servants. And you can argue whether that is because the PP has a policy of believing public servants are of certain ethnicities, so they want to discriminate against them, or whether it is that they do not believe in good governance, so they do not want to pay public servants properly, or whether it is that they do not believe in education, so they do not want to pay teachers properly. These are all questions that viewers should ask themselves when it comes to public servant salary increases. Now, you also mentioned that we did make that shift where those at the lower end benefited the most. But one thing the PVP likes to say is, oh, if you give out money, there'll be inflation. When we made those large increases over the years and in previous years, there has not been the runaway inflation the PVP is claiming. There has not been. And in fact, given that our economy is tremendously productive, if you are able to pay public servants more, there's no reason to think that you're going to have runaway inflation. The economy is a productive economy. It is not that you are printing money to put it out there. It is that the economy is growing. It is that the government is getting 300 and something billion dollars of revenue this year alone, and has gotten that level of revenue for a couple of years, more or less now. It is that the government will look forward to similar levels of revenue the following year and the year after. And that you have a sovereign wealth fund with already, it varies, but over $1 billion. But, it varies as they take out some money and so on and so forth. So it is, to me, it stems from a really wrong-headed understanding of the situation the PVP has, which may also be grounded in a bit of spite. But, Shurwayne, another thing we need to highlight to viewers is that it is not just that they're not providing large increases. It is that, and this is what Jagdio was saying, they are spending the money on other things, and people are asking, where's this money going? Are we getting any value for our money here? Folks, including supplementary budgets this year, PP will have spent something like 905 billion dollars. That's what they budgeted for. $905 billion. The cost of this 6.5 percent increase was only $7.5 billion according to the government. So of this 900 billion, they only put aside 7.5 billion for public servants. That is not even 1%. Now look at it from another angle. We spoke about oil revenues in excess of 300 billion, 7.5 billion. That I believe is not even, I think it's 5% or some small number. Folks, they could easily have given twice this increase and it still would not even have moved the needle. It is a deliberate decision. They are spending money, but they don't intend to spend money on teachers, on doctors and nurses, on GRA staff. Sure, when you may recall the GRA complaining that their workers, their auditors, were being poached by oil companies. And the reason cited was the pay. So, when we desperately need these auditors to safeguard Guyana's oil resources, make sure that we're not being shortchanged, rather than paying the auditors properly, hiring the proper auditors, supporting the GRA, we've been calling for them to support the GRA. What are they doing? They're refusing to give them proper compensation.
Well, Elson, I'm happy you raised that, and that topic could really take us off into something else. I don't want to go into deep into that, but what I would say, I would raise with the public that the coalition had a team of auditors, so to speak. I think it was 30 or 30 something of them to protect that oil industry out there, to record, to ensure that we're getting value for money, to ensure that the correct thing is being recorded. And when the PPP came in, they cleared out all of them. They said that some of them were getting super salaries and they can't afford it, etc. And so I see it not as, coming back to the point that you made, not with Station now complaining about the auditors, they're losing them to the oil industry. Um, it begs the question if this is very deliberate to facilitate corruption.
It is indeed alarming. It is what is so troubling is that the auditors GRA has right now, a lot of the time it is internal staff that they retrain and so on. It's not that they attracted outside staff with higher pay and so on. We've been calling for the GRA to be supported, and compensation is one key area because it is critical, the work that they are doing. And you've seen in the press, those of you who are paying close attention, hundreds of millions of dollars in question, and we're talking about US, over these oil expenses and us auditing those expenses. So we say that to say that there is tremendous value in paying public servants a wage that is appropriate, in giving public servants a good increase. There's a lot of value in that for the country. But that is in terms of the direct value to public servants. Let's talk about the value to the economy of providing public servants with good compensation. Now, a lot of those public servants are going to spend that money in the economy, which is going to create jobs, which is going to help businesses to expand, which is going to boost the non-oil economy, as public servants will not only be buying gasoline, but buying many, many things. So that is also a way for us to boost the local economy. And as we said, the anxiety about inflation is misplaced because it is not that we're printing money. It is that the economy is performing, the oil industry is performing, there's revenues coming out of the oil industry, and therefore there's money that's available. So there are
Well,
all sorts of benefits, especially around Christmas time. Vendors, stores are looking for people to purchase their goods so they can have a prosperous economic circumstances. And that's not
Money,
what you're going to see.
money seems to certainly be available because they will be going back to the parliament on Tuesday to garner more than $20 billion of funds again in a supplementary budget, and I think they have another paper there. But what jumped out at me was the fact that they have even more money yet again, huge sums of monies. I'm sorry I didn't. I don't have the supplemental paper in front of me here, but huge sums again in the form of billions of dollars to Kaisuku. So while we're saying that we can't afford our public servants, our public sector, which is the driver of our economy, which is responsible for the administration of of government and governance to some extent. We can't put money there, but we can afford to put billions upon billions into an industry that has been failing. Now, again, these topics are so interlinked, and we can go off to talk about Gaisuku. I want to reserve that for another topic what they're doing. But I saw a letter in the Kaichur, I believe, just yesterday, which explained the current status of Gaisuku and what they're doing in terms of trying to fool the people that they are achieving objectives, or Gaisuku is actually going somewhere in terms of their 60%, their 60,000 tons rather of cane. And so they're fudging wrong with the figures, playing wrong with the figures, actually harvesting cane that should be processed next year, that should be harvested next year. They're harvesting it this year to achieve that goal of 60,000 tons, which is very low, by the way. The coalition with three estates open, only three estates open, with little money pumped, made about 92,000 tons when we left office. And so them trying to achieve a very low target, almost half that amount, reduced to half that amount, 60,000 tons, using cane from 2024 to prop up those figures to justify giving the industry, and that's the point I'm coming to justify giving the industry even more money while you just give to the public servants a meager, paltry 6.5% increase, which amounts to nothing, which amounts to a rate lower than the inflation rate, as you rightfully said.
Absolutely. Well, you point to that to I mean, 24 to 26. When you add in a few things, I think it's about 26 billion is what they're looking for there. Now, that paper where they're coming for more money, 26 billion more, man, that is easily 3 times the same amount that they're given to public servants, because it's 7.5 billion. So it's easily, you know,
Yeah.
they're coming for triple what they're giving to public servants. And we don't even know half of the time what's happening to this money, because the progress that you might be expecting to see from a national budget that is 3 times as large as it was only a few years ago, it's triple, is not what you are seeing. It's all Guyanese have to ask themselves. Are their lives 3 times as good as they were a few years ago? Have you seen 3 times better roads? Have you seen 3 times better electricity service? Have you seen 3 times better healthcare or education? In fact, you're seeing worse numbers when it comes to maths pass rates and other metrics. You're not seeing value for money at all. It's more money being spent, but no progress or limited progress. So this is absolutely, I think, disturbing. But just to draw another analogy here, or an outside point, I believe it's St. Kitts. Forgive me if it's the wrong country, that offered 8% to their public
St.
servants.
Kitts and Nevis, yes,
Yes,
a full package. A full
exactly,
package. I don't know if the
comprehensive.
operator has it close to his
They
hand,
offered
but
a very large
they
package,
announced,
8% to their
yeah,
public servants, in addition to other measures. But the point is, man, Shurwayne, St. Kitts is a big oil producer. They don't have oil, and they are offering
I,
8%.
I believe we got islands in the Essequibo bigger than St. Kitts.
Several.
Several of them, several
Yeah,
of them
yeah,
bigger than those places. You know,
exactly.
they I when I looked at the plan there, I said, you know, some of these things resemble some of the things we have been talking about as as a coalition, um, giving out certain things to students and newborns. So that gets us into um, what we would expect or what we should expect. I want us to discuss what we should expect from a new coalition government with respect to the economy, with respect to pay increases and these matters. But before we go there, what what should we expect from the People's Progressive Party government? Um, Going forward. We're in 2023 and we're seeing 6.5% when we expected double digit figures since last year. Since last year, as the parliamentary opposition, we've been expecting those kinds of increases because we would have done it without oil, as everybody knows. So we would have expected that. What could we expect to see from a PPP government in 2024 and in 2025, which is expected to be the election year?
Well, you know what the thing is. I think some Guyanese were hopeful or optimistic. Oh, PVP is gonna give a decent raise. There's money flowing now, but their hopes have been dashed for a couple of years now, and so it is to me clear that there isn't any reason to be optimistic that in 2024 they're gonna give some substantial raise anywhere near what we have been talking about. Now, that is for 2024. 2025, some people may argue, well, maybe going into the election, they might want to give a slightly larger raise. But it kind of seems like they're not particularly concerned with ensure that public servants are properly compensated. So I wouldn't be optimistic if I were I wouldn't be optimistic as well. I think that is unlikely to be the case. This is truly tragic because what is happening is that on a purchasing power basis, if you look at the cost of goods across countries, and if you look at GDP per capita, which is income per capita per person, a rough measure of how wealthy a country is or the income they have per person. Next year, Guyana should be amongst the top 5 or top 10 countries in the entire world. And the following year should be the country with the highest income per capita purchasing power. The highest income, higher than Liechtenstein and all of these places, Luxembourg and all these places. And the PPP seems resolute that instead of offering a 50% increase as we have been calling for, as well as other large increases to ensure that public servants in Guyana have competitive wages, they don't seem to have any interest in that. Now, at this point, we have to circle back to one of the points you made earlier, which is where they keep stressing unsustainable, unsustainable, as if public servants are not entitled to benefit at all from oil revenues when it comes to their salaries, and as if the sovereign wealth fund is not there as a safety net, and as if we are not going to be getting interest, that is to say, money from the money that is sitting in that sovereign wealth fund, which is sustainable. We get that every year, and which can be used to pay recurring government expenses like public servant salaries or like investment in education or healthcare. And so, sadly, it seems to me that they have decided that their approach will be not to give public servants any kind of increases and only to fund any increases that do exist from the non-oil economy. This is tragic because it seems public servants will just have to be left out by the PVP. That's their plan.
Yeah. Look, I agree with you completely, and I think historically the PPP has treated the public servants with disdain. They don't see public servants as supporters of the government, and so hence the treatment, hence the treatment. If we go back and we look at what they would have done prior to 2015, it was a 2%, 2.5, a 3% here. As you get closer to election, you might see a 5% somewhere thereabout. But that is all they did, even as the economy was growing, and growing it was, even in those times. Gold was on the rise, a number of other things um, were contributing, and they didn't budge. They didn't budge. Period. But as soon as we got into government, we recognized the error and we looked to correct it, even without oil money. We got about just about 10 minutes, and so I want to discuss. I know we can't discuss everything within 10 minutes, but I want to discuss our as a new coalition government, people people can expect, what our public servants can look forward to. I know our ideas are evolving. Our plans will be evolving as we get closer to taking government, to removing the PPP from office and attaining that position in government. I know our plans will be evolving, but at this stage, I want us to discuss what we would have already putting to the parliament, what we would have already been putting out at our various press conferences and our various platforms. I want you to give the public an idea of some of the economic policies and some of our plans, some of our programs. What is
Absolutely,
it that
absolutely.
a coalition has to offer or is thinking of offering the people
Absolutely.
of
Well,
this country?
we have quite a few programs, but let us talk here about public servants and build from there. Now, as we got close to the election, we'll add more things as more revenues are available, the situation, get more information. But as it stands, we first of all believe that public servants should be entitled to a 50% increase just to get the ball rolling, and several other large increases to ensure that their wages reach internationally competitive levels, just as Guyana's economy is becoming is producing a higher per person income than most economies in the world. So that's our starting place. But really, we want to imagine the role of public servants to be not just output but outcomes. We want to task public servants with helping us to improve the system so that things are done more efficiently and so that citizens have a better experience dealing with the public service across a wide range of areas. We want to work with our teachers to ensure that our pass rates are some of the highest around the world. We want to work with our police officers to ensure that our streets are safe. We want to work with our healthcare professionals to ensure that we have one of the best healthcare systems in the world. And so, as we provide these large increases, we will also be tasking public servants with helping us to improve the quality of what is delivered to the Guyanese people, who are deserving of quality services. And public servants are critical to helping us to meet those goals. So, whereas the PVP sees public servants, it seems, as people who just stamp two papers and process things and don't add any value, we see them as critical to meeting our development goals. We believe that this must be a country where infant mortality rates are amongst the lowest in the world, where malnutrition is amongst the lowest, childhood malnutrition, lowest in the world, where education pass rates are amongst the highest in the world, where the streets are safe, that you can walk around at night, go from bar to bar, enjoy yourself, like in every major places, major cities in the world. That is the way that this should be approached. And public servant salary increases are one of the levers that we will pull to help us to reach these objectives. Now, we know also that as much as the PVP is spending lots of money, they're not getting progress in key areas. We will have the opposite approach. We will monitor, evaluate, gather data, engage in analysis. You know that word analysis? They don't like that word analysis. They like to say no-brainer rather than conducting analysis, so that we can get the best out of the funds that we're spending, and so that we can appropriately save money, which can be spent on other things to benefit the Guyanese people. We must again stress, and when we met, the leader opposition and myself met with the IMF in Washington, D.C., we raised this topic of Guyana losing 41 cents for every dollar spent. And we expressed to them that we will work closely with the IMF and their recommendations to ensure that we're getting value for money for every dollar that is spent. Every dollar. Public servants are critical to helping us achieve those objectives. Critical. So it is not just that we're talking about the increases because it sounds nice. It is that we want to produce better governance for Guyanese, better outcomes, not just out spending money for the sake of sounding like you're spending money, but we want to produce better for Guyanese. And so that is really our philosophy when it comes to the public service and to the way that we're going to deal with public servants going forward. We also want to ensure, and this is something that goes by the wayside, that we engage with unions, we listen to their concerns, and we're able to find some path going forward where unions can be a part of the conversation for compensation. The PUP bypasses the unions and imposes these unilateral increases. And studies show that when you have unilateral increases, especially where they do not meet the expectations of workers, that causes them to underperform. I mentioned that in one of my letters to the press, that public servants underperform when their expectations are not met, especially when they were not involved in a bargaining process. So sadly, that is the nature of governance on the PUP and the public service, where they are deliberately undermining the public service, discouraging them. People are looking to leave and so on. We will have the opposite approach, and we will work closely with international institutions, consultancies, and so on, and the public servants themselves to produce the good governance that Guyanese so deserve.
You know, as you were talking there, I recall, and this is a funny one. I recall the president Irfan Ali being interviewed. I don't know if it's at the stadium where probably a British national would have asked him a question, and in an arrogant way, he said, you know, he pointed and said, you know, you're taking our nurses. Outside of the arrogance, my thought was that, you know, if I were that reporter or if I were that person, I would ask him, why are they leaving? Why are they coming to my country? Why
Well,
is it
I'm
problem
telling
that
you,
you have to solve in your country? You
and
know?
the ironic part of the whole thing is that if you look at it right now, by that same purchasing parity measure, where you look at the per capita income, the income proportion of your country, the wealth proportion, how much money you make in proportion, Guyana is ahead of the United Kingdom. And so we could pay public servants far better. So while he is saying it, is calling out the United Kingdom as if they're doing something wrong by paying good wages, we, by some measures, have more income coming into this country than them. And we are not paying the people the way that we should be paying them to ensure that they're comfortable and remain. So he's blaming the UK, but really the person to blame is him.
Elson, I think we'll have to wrap it up there for tonight. I know this is a huge topic. It's just part of a bigger topic, the economy, cost of living. There's lots of plans by the coalition in with regards to the economy and our economic plans going into the next government, or when we get government after the next elections. I'll have to invite you back and have further discussions on these topics. You know, it's always good to have you on this program. I think tonight you did a fantastic job in explaining to the audience, the viewing and listening audience.
Thank you,
Um,
thank
of,
you. Always good to come
of
on. It's always a fun chat. You know, we as young people, we bring a lighter side to some of these issues which are just tragic.
yes, Sunday, it's Sunday, so I don't want to stretch it as we have a couple of seconds closing out the 1 hour, that 1 hour mark. So I leave it there for tonight, and I'll invite you again sometime in the near future to be on this program once again, where we can discuss the trending issues. Folks, that wraps up our program. Trust that you would leave it a bit wiser and satisfied what you would have heard tonight. And don't forget to share it with your friends, family, neighbors, all the groups that you're in. Please tune in again next Sunday, same time, same place, when we'll again have another episode of breaking down the issues. So until then, good night and God bless.
Of Guyana to